You ever notice how someone's clothes can decide how they're treated? He walked in soaked from the rain, head down, shoulders hunched, as if each step was heavier than the last. His coat was torn, his shoes barely holding together, and his face hidden beneath a mess of wet hair and a hood. At first, no one said anything, but the silence, it was sharp, cold. Like everyone in that upscale restaurant had frozen mid-bite, watching him like he didn't belong. One woman clutched her purse. A waiter stiffened, and then someone whispered, just loud enough, "Wrong place, buddy. Try the shelter down the block." The man didn't respond. He just looked around slowly. Not angry, not ashamed, just tired. He walked up to the host's stand and said 5 simple words. "May I have a meal?" They laughed. Not loudly, not openly, but the kind of laugh that slices. No one in that room knew who he was. No one imagined what they were about to unleash. Because by morning, his face would be on every screen in America, and the very people who kicked him out would be begging for his forgiveness. The rain hadn't let up for hours. It dripped steadily from the awnings of downtown buildings, turning the sidewalks into shallow rivers. Most people rushed past with umbrellas and expensive coats, eager to escape the weather. But he moved slowly. No one noticed him at first. He was just another homeless man shuffling through the streets. But when he stopped in front of Maison de l'Oil, one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, a few glances turned his way. Not out of concern. Curiosity, maybe. Disdain, definitely. He stood there for a moment, staring through the frosted glass doors. Inside, it was warmth and candlelight, the clink of silverware, laughter softened by rich food and red wine. Outside, he was soaked to the bone, a shadow in a world of light. Then he pushed the door open. The moment he stepped inside, the mood shifted. Conversations faded. A couple at a corner table stopped mid-toast. A hostess near the entrance blinked twice, unsure whether to approach or call security. He didn't speak right away, just stood there, dripping water onto the polished floor. His eyes scanned the room not with desperation, but with quiet intent, as if he was searching for something, or someone. No one greeted him. No one offered help. He took one step forward, and that was when the judgment began. It started with a cough sharp, exaggerated. A man in a tailored navy suit, seated near the window, shifted uncomfortably and glanced toward the entrance, making no attempt to hide his disgust. His date followed his gaze and whispered something behind her wine glass. She laughed. Across the room, a mother suddenly pulled her daughter's hand away from the edge of the table, as if afraid the man might somehow contaminate the air. Even the pianist paused, his fingers hovering over the keys like the atmosphere had turned too thick to play through. The man, still unnamed, still silent, took another step inside. Now the hostess found her voice. "Sir, this is a private establishment," she said, each word carefully measured, as if speaking to a child. "You can't be in here dressed like that." But he didn't seem to hear her. Or maybe he did, and just didn't care. His eyes landed on an empty table near the back, cloth crisp and white, silver gleaming under dim light. He pointed. "Is this table available?" he asked. That's when the first real laugh broke out. Someone at the bar, a stockbroker type, slicked hair and expensive watch, snorted and muttered, "Guy wants a steak dinner." Look at him. The staff didn't laugh, but the look in their eyes said enough. Contempt mixed with the unspoken belief that this man didn't belong, not here, not anywhere. He turned back to the hostess. "Just a warm meal." "I can pay." She blinked. "With what?" she asked, the sarcasm sharp beneath her fox politeness. That's when the manager appeared, heels clicking, face tight with annoyance. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," she said. Now, the room watched in eager silence, as if this were some strange theater. They had no idea the performance had just begun. The manager didn't wait for a response. She turned and gestured sharply to someone across the room, a tall waiter in his late 20s. Sharp jaw, sleeves rolled neatly to his elbows. His name tag read Lucas, but the way he carried himself made it clear he believed this job was beneath him. Yet he played the part of authority like a role he'd rehearsed 100 times. Lucas approached with a practiced smile that disappeared the moment he saw who he was dealing with. His jaw clenched. "Hey," he said, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "You need to go." The man turned to him calmly. "Why?" Lucas scoffed. "Because this is a restaurant, not a shelter. You're making the guests uncomfortable." The man's voice didn't rise. "I asked for a meal. Nothing more. You can't afford anything on this menu. And even if you could, we reserve the right to deny service." Then Lucas did something no one expected. He reached out and grabbed the man by the arm. "Come on," he said. "Let's not make a scene." But the scene had already begun. A fork clattered to a plate. Someone pulled out their phone. The tension in the room was thick now, pulsing beneath the dim lighting. The man didn't resist. He looked down at Lucas's hand gripping his coat sleeve. His voice dropped to a near whisper. "You don't want to do that." Lucas laughed. "Or what?" That's when the woman in the corner, the one in the blue dress, stood up. She'd been silent until now, watching, frowning. Her eyes were locked on Lucas, full of something no one else in that room seemed to have. Conviction. She stepped away from her table slowly, heels clicking against the marble floor. Her dress was elegant, but understated deep blue silk that shimmered under the soft light. People turned to look at her, not just because she was interrupting, but because she carried herself with the kind of confidence that demanded attention. "Let him go," she said, her voice steady, cutting through the tension like a blade. Lucas turned, surprised. "Excuse me?" I said, "Let him go." The manager stepped in quickly. "Ma'am, I'm sorry if this is disturbing your evening. We're handling it." The woman didn't look at her. She kept her eyes on Lucas. "You're handling it by putting your hands on someone who hasn't done a thing wrong." Lucas tried to laugh it off, but it came out awkward. "Look, he walked in off the street. He walked in like every other person in this place. Through the front door. He asked for a meal, not a handout." Now the room was completely silent. Phones were recording. Even the bartender had stopped polishing glasses. The woman turned to the man. "Did you hurt anyone?" "No," he said quietly. "Did you threaten anyone?" "No." She looked around the room, then back at Lucas. "Then why is this happening?" Lucas hesitated, eyes flicking toward the manager for backup. But she looked just as unsure now. The woman in blue wasn't yelling. She wasn't hysterical. She was calm. Calm. And suddenly, everyone around them started to realize how ugly this moment really looked. The man met her eyes for the first time. A faint nod. There was something behind his gaze. Something ancient. Wounded. And unreadable. Without another word, he turned around and walked out the door. Nobody followed him. But someone hit record, and that changed everything. It started as a 30-second clip. Shaky footage, captured by a teenager sitting near the bar, zoomed in on the moment the man was grabbed and told to leave. You could hear the laughter, the muttered insults, the scorn in the waiter's voice. But more than anything, you could feel the tension, palpable, shameful, raw. Then came the woman in blue, her voice clear, unwavering, her words slicing through the silence. And finally, the man walking away, drenched in rain and dignity. The video was posted to a local subreddit with a simple caption, "Kicked out of a restaurant for looking homeless. You tell me if this was okay." By morning, it had been shared on Twitter, then TikTok, then national news outlets. Millions watched. Thousands commented. Some defended the restaurant. Most were horrified. Then came the real twist when someone finally recognized him. An anonymous user, hidden behind a burner account, commented, "Wait, that man, that's William D. Mercer, founder of Mercer Hospitality Group. Look at the eyes. That's him." People dismissed it as a joke. William Mercer had vanished from public life years ago, after the sudden death of his wife and daughter in a tragic fire. Rumors claimed he'd sold off everything, vanished into grief. But the eyes, they were unmistakable. The internet did what it does best. It investigated. Old interviews were pulled, side-by-side comparisons posted, and slowly, the theory took root. The man the world had pitied, mocked, and dismissed was one of the original architects of the very restaurant that had thrown him out. By the afternoon, the restaurant's inbox was flooded. Calls were pouring in. Their Instagram page had gone. Dark comments disabled, posts deleted. The official statement was short and carefully worded. "We are investigating the incident and will take appropriate action." But the damage was already done. That's when a call came into their corporate office. It was brief, direct, no identification. The assistant who answered said the voice was male, measured, quiet, but firm. "I need to speak with whoever is currently in charge of the downtown location," the man said. "Tell them William Mercer is returning." Then he hung up. The assistant froze. She replayed the words over and over again. William Mercer. It couldn't be. He was gone. Rumors said he'd left the country. Others claimed he'd gone off the grid after losing everything in the fire: his wife, his daughter, his home, his empire. But now, if the rumors were true, he hadn't vanished. He'd just been watching. Within an hour, the board was assembled in an emergency call. The location manager was pale. The waiter, Lucas, hadn't shown up for work. And the woman in blue, whose name still wasn't public, was being hailed as a hero online. At 4:13 p.m., a black sedan pulled up outside the same restaurant. The man stepped out, now clean-shaven, wearing a tailored charcoal coat. No one spoke as he approached the doors. He didn't knock. He walked inside. And this time, no one dared to stop him. The restaurant was nearly empty when he entered. The air inside felt different, tense, watchful. The few staff members who remained stood frozen behind the counter. The manager, now visibly shaken, stepped forward slowly. "Mr. Mercer?" she asked, her voice barely audible. He didn't respond, just scanned the room with calm, deliberate eyes. No panic, no rush. He looked like a man who had already made peace with everything he was about to do. The silence stretched until she tried again. We didn't know it was you." That made him turn. "That's the problem," he said, voice even. "You didn't know. And because you didn't know, you thought it was okay to humiliate me, to touch me, to throw me out. We were following policy," she stammered. "No," he interrupted. "You were following prejudice." He took a few steps forward. The sound of his shoes against the floor was the only thing anyone could hear. Then he looked directly at the restaurant's mission plaque mounted on the wall, something he'd written himself years ago. "To serve with dignity, to feed the body and honor the person." He read it out loud. "You hang those words like decoration," he said, "but you forgot what they mean." The hostess from the night before appeared behind the manager, face pale. She didn't say a word. Neither did the busboy standing in the back, phone in hand, recording everything. William turned, now addressing all of them. "This place was built after I lost everything. It was supposed to honor the people we overlook. It wasn't meant to become just another gatekeeping club for the wealthy." Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a sealed envelope. "Effective immediately," he said, placing it on the front desk. "Ownership of this location is under review. Several of you will not be returning." The manager's lips parted, but no words came. William turned toward the door. And as he left, no one dared to stop him, not this time. The next morning, a quiet storm rolled into Mercer Hospitality's headquarters. Executives had scrambled to contain the fallout. PR firms were working overtime, but none of their spin mattered now. William Mercer, the man they hadn't seen in years, was walking through the glass front doors of the very empire he once helped build, and no one could look him in the eye. He didn't make an appointment. He didn't need one. Security stood aside as he passed. Receptionists froze at their desks. The silence followed him up 27 floors to the executive suite. When the boardroom doors opened, half the faces inside went pale. The chairman, a polished man with a toothy smile and a well-rehearsed handshake, stood up. "William," he said, trying to soften his tone with warmth. "We didn't know you were still alive," William finished for him. Still watching, an uncomfortable laugh rippled through the room, but he didn't smile. He placed a stack of documents on the table. "I built this company on a promise," he said, "that no one, no matter how they looked, would be turned away with hunger in their stomach. That principle was written into the mission, the hiring, even the menus." He paused, letting the weight settle. "And now it's been turned into a club for the polished and proud." The chairman shifted. "We understand the situation, and we're taking steps." William held up a hand. "You had years to take steps, and you didn't. One night where the mask slipped, and the world saw what you've become." He turned to the window, looking out over the city. "I disappeared after the fire because I had nothing left. I let this company grow without me, and this is what it became. But now, I'm back." he faced them again. "And I'm taking it apart, one location at a time, if I have to." No one spoke. No one blinked, because they all knew this wasn't a man coming to make threats. This was a man coming home. Within 48 hours, the news broke. Founder of Mercer Hospitality returns after years in hiding. Launches internal purge following viral video. The story was everywhere. News anchors replayed the footage of the confrontation, not just at the restaurant, but at the company's headquarters. Clips of William's quiet words echoed across headlines and social media. "You forgot what dignity means." Then came the consequences. Lucas, the waiter, was terminated publicly. A statement was issued, carefully phrased, but it was clear his actions had crossed a line. The location manager resigned under pressure the same day. Several other employees across the chain were quietly removed after internal audits revealed similar patterns of behavior. It wasn't just a what-I'm mistake. It was a culture. But the most surprising change? The woman in the blue dress. Her name was Naomi Blair, a school teacher who had simply gone out for dinner that night. She hadn't expected to become a symbol. But William did something few predicted. He reached out and offered her a role. She declined the spotlight, but accepted a position as head of community engagement. Her first task, leading a new initiative to ensure every Mercer restaurant offered one free meal per day to someone in need. No questions asked. Menus were revised. Training was overhauled. The plaques that once served as decorative mission statements were now printed on every receipt and etched into the walls in plain view. The change was real. Visible. And people noticed. Mercer Hospitality's stock dropped, briefly. Then it surged, because people weren't just eating the food anymore. They were buying into the story. The press tried to get him to speak. Talk shows offered appearances. Books were proposed. But William Mercer declined them all. He didn't want fame. He'd had that once. It didn't save his family. Instead, he visited one location at a time quietly. Not to inspect, not to control, but to sit. Observe. Sometimes he'd eat. Sometimes he wouldn't. But he always watched how people were treated, how they looked at strangers, whether they saw hunger or just a worn coat. He never returned to the restaurant where it all happened. That building was sold, torn down. In its place, a community kitchen was built. No branding. No press. Just food and warmth. Naomi ran it with a small team of volunteers. No uniforms, no judgment. People came in from the cold and left with full stomachs and a little more hope than they arrived with. One evening, long after closing, Naomi found William sitting alone in the back, staring at a photograph on the wall. His wife and daughter, smiling beneath a tree. A photo no one else had ever seen. She sat beside him, not speaking. After a long pause, he finally said, "You know, I built an empire, and I lost it trying to make it perfect." Naomi looked at him. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be perfect. Maybe it just needed to remember where it started. He nodded, eyes misting. Justice didn't come in courtrooms or press releases. It came in moments like this, quiet, earned, human. Because sometimes the only real justice is reminding the world what humanity looks like. So what would you have done if you'd been sitting in that restaurant? Would you have spoken up, or would you have stayed silent just like everyone else? It's easy to say we do the right thing when we're not the ones being tested. But sometimes the real measure of who we are is how we treat people when we think no one's watching. Let us know in the comments. Have you ever witnessed someone being mistreated just because of how they looked? And if so, what did you do?